received a remarkable book she had ordered from Japan called The Reason I Jump. Its author, Naoki Higashida, was born in 1992. He wrote the book when he was only 13 years old and was still in junior high school when the book was published. Naoki's autism is severe enough to make spoken communication pretty much impossible for him, even now. But thanks to an ambitious teacher and his own persistence, he learned to spell out words directly onto an alphabet grid. A Japanese alphabet grid is a table of the Japanese hiragana letters, and the English version is a copy of the QWERTY keyboard, drawn onto a card and laminated. Naoki communicates by pointing to the letters on these grids to spell out whole words, which a helper at his side then transcribes. These words build up into sentences, paragraphs, and entire books. Extras around the side of the grids include numbers, punctuation, and the words finished, yes, and no. Naoki can also write and blog directly onto a computer via its keyboard, but he finds the lower tech alphabet grid a steadier handrail, as it offers fewer distractions and helps him to focus. Even in primary school, this method enabled Naoki to communicate with others and compose poems and storybooks, but it was his explanations about why children with autism do what they do that were, literally, the answers that my wife and I had been waiting for. Composed by a writer still with one foot in childhood and whose autism was at least as challenging and life-altering as our son's, The Reason I Jump was a revelatory godsend. Reading it felt as if, for the first time, our own son was talking to us about what was happening inside his head through Naoki's words. My wife and I began to work on an informal translation of Naoki's book into English so that our son's other carers and tutors could read it. This English translation of The Reason I Jump is the result. The author is not a guru, and if the answers to a few of the questions seem a little sparse, remember he was only 13 when he wrote them.
When I was small, I didn't even know that I was a kid with special needs. How did I find out? By other people telling me that I was different from everyone else and that this was a problem. True enough, it was very hard for me to act like a normal person. Even now I still can't do a real conversation. I have no problem reading books aloud and singing, but as soon as I try to speak with someone, my words just vanish. Sure, sometimes I manage a few words, but even these can come out the complete opposite to what I want to say. I can't respond appropriately when I'm told to do something, and whenever I get nervous, I run off from wherever I happen to be. So even a straightforward activity like shopping can be really challenging if I'm tackling it on my own. So why can't I do these things? During my frustrating, miserable, helpless days, I've started imagining what it would be like if everyone was autistic. If autism was regarded simply as a personality type, things would be so much easier and happier for us than they are now. For sure, there are bad times when we cause a lot of hassle for other people, but what we really want is to be able to look towards a brighter future. Thanks to training I've had at school and with my mum, I've learnt a method of communication through writing. The problem is, many children with autism don't have the means to express themselves, and often even their own parents don't have a clue what they might be thinking. So my big hope is that I can help a bit by explaining in my own way what's going on in the minds of people with autism. I also hope that by reading this book, you might become a better friend of someone with autism. You can't judge a person by their looks, but once you know the other person's inner self, both of you can be that much closer. From your point of view, the world of autism must look like a deeply mysterious place, so please, spare a little time to listen to what I have to say, and have a nice trip through our world.
How are you writing these sentences?
The alphabet grid is a method of non-vocal communication. You might think that speech is the only way to get your points and intentions across, but there is another way to say what you want without using the vocal nervous system. At first, I never dreamt I could make it work, but now I'm well able to express my true self using only computer and an alphabet grid. This is an incredible feeling. Not being able to talk means not being able to share what you're feeling and thinking. It's like being a doll, spending your whole life in isolation, without dreams and without hopes. Sure, it took a long time before I could finally start communicating using written text on my own. But on that first day when my mum supported my writing hand in hers, I began to acquire a new way of interacting with others. Then, to allow me more independent communication, Mum invented the alphabet grid. The alphabet grid makes it possible to form my words by simply pointing to their letters instead of having to write them out one by one. This also lets me anchor my words that would otherwise flutter off as soon as I tried to speak them. Often, while I was learning this method, I'd feel utterly beaten, but finally I arrived at the point where I could indicate the letters by myself. What kept me hammering away at it was the thought that to live my life as a human being, nothing is more important than being able to express myself. So for me, the alphabet grid isn't just about putting sentences together. It's about getting across to other people what I want and need them to understand.
Why can't you have a proper conversation?
For a long time, I've been wondering why us people with autism can't talk properly. I can never say what I really want to. Instead, verbal junk that hasn't got anything to do with anything comes pouring out of my mouth. Even with straightforward yes or no questions, we make mistakes. It happens all the time to me that the other person misunderstands or misinterprets what I've just said. And because I'm barely able to hold a conversation, fixing what's gone wrong is beyond my powers. This used to get me down badly, and I couldn't help envying all those people who speak without even trying. Our feelings are the same as everyone else's, but we can't find a way to express them. Lots of people can't get their heads fully around this, I think. Isn't there a belief out there that if a person is using verbal language, it follows that the person is saying what they want to say? It's thanks to this belief that those of us with autism get even more locked up inside ourselves. Just because some of us can make sounds or utter words, it doesn't follow automatically that what we said is really what we wanted to say. We don't even have proper control over our own bodies. Both staying still and moving when we're told to is tricky. It's as if we're remote controlling a faulty robot. On top of this, we're always getting told off, and we can't even explain ourselves. I used to feel abandoned by the whole world. Please don't judge us from the outside only. I don't know why we can't talk properly, but it's not that we won't talk, it's that we can't talk and we're suffering because of it. All on our own, there's nothing we can do about this problem, and there were times when I used to wonder why non-speaking me had ever been born. But having started with text communication, now I'm able to express myself, and being able to share what I think allows me to understand that I too exist in this world as a human being. Can you imagine how your life would be if you couldn't talk?
Why do you ignore us when we're talking to you?
If someone's talking to me from somewhere far off, I don't notice. You're probably thinking, same here, but a major headache for me is that even when someone's right here in front of me, I still don't notice when they're talking to me. Not noticing, however, is not the same as deliberately ignoring. People around me always make me realise that I'm being spoken to by saying things like, "Say hello back then, Naoki," or "What do you say then?" So whenever that happens, I just repeat what I've been told to say, like a minor bird learning a new word. Even though I feel guilty towards the person who has spoken to me, I can't even apologise. So I end up feeling miserable and ashamed that I can't manage a proper human relationship. A person who's looking at a mountain far away doesn't notice the prettiness of a dandelion in front of them. A person who's looking at a dandelion in front of them doesn't see the beauty of a mountain far away. To us, people's voices are a bit like that. It's very difficult for us to know someone's there and that they're talking to us just by his or her voice. So it would help us a great deal if you could just use our names first to get our attention before you then start talking to us.
Would you like to be normal?
What would we do if there was some way that we could be normal? Well, I bet the people around us, our parents and teachers, would be ecstatic with joy and say, "Hallelujah, we'll change them back to normal right now." And for ages and ages, I badly wanted to be normal too. Living with special needs is so depressing and so relentless. I used to think it'd be the best thing if I could just live my life like a normal person. But now, even if somebody developed a medicine to cure autism, I might well choose to stay as I am. You might wonder why I've come round to thinking this way. To give the short version, I've learnt that every human being, with or without disabilities, needs to strive to do their best, and it's the striving for happiness that is the happiness. For us, you see, having autism is normal, so we can't know for sure what your normal is even like. But so long as we can learn to love ourselves, I'm not sure how much it matters whether we're normal or autistic.
What is the reason you jump?
What do you think I'm feeling when I'm jumping up and down, clapping my hands? I bet you think I'm not really feeling anything much beyond the manic glee all over my face. But when I'm jumping, it's as if my feelings are going upwards to the sky. Really, my urge to be swallowed up by the sky is enough to make my heart quiver. When I'm jumping, I can feel my body parts really well too, my bounding legs and my clapping hands, and that makes me feel so good. So that's one reason why I jump, and recently I've noticed another reason. People with autism react physically to feelings of happiness and sadness. So when something happens that affects me emotionally, my body seizes up as if struck by lightning. Seizing up doesn't mean that my muscles literally get stiff and immobile. Rather, it means that I'm not free to move the way I want. So by jumping up and down, it's as if I'm shaking loose the ropes that are tying up my body. When I jump, I feel lighter, and I think the reason my body is drawn skywards is that the motion makes me want to change into a bird and fly off to some faraway place. But constrained both by ourselves and by the people around us, all we can do is tweet, flap our wings and hop around in a cage. If only I could just flap my wings and soar away, into the big blue yonder, over the hills and far away.
Caspar Hilton Hilly was reading from The Reason I Jump, which was translated and introduced by David Mitchell. It was abridged and produced by Allegra McElroy, and David Mitchell has written a blog post about the book, which you can find by going to the Book of the Week programme page on the Radio 4 website. Coming up after the news, it's Woman's Hour.